Hi, it's Laurel here, and welcome to day 4 of the masterclass. I'm just sharing my screen and we will get started. Um, okay, let's get a full view of this. Okay, so let's get back to the slide one. Yeah, so today we are going to look at why we keep repeating the same patterns. And just to let you know, nothing has gone wrong. You are just running a script that you didn't actually choose. And we're going to today look a bit more closely about what could be happening here and some of the reasons why, so that you can get an idea of perhaps some of the things that you've been drifting into. And this is really information that we can use together. So yesterday we were looking at your AI, use of AI on your tech stack and what stays uniquely human and how we can create more space for ourselves by building using technology in ways that support human flourishing. And today we are going to look at what's underneath and why it might not be moving as you would have hoped. So this today is all about patterns, and I often believe or get called a pattern spotter or able to identify all these patterns. And that is great because, I'm really using balance, able to help uncover some of these repeat patterns. But everything starts with awareness, and you have to recognize what the patterns are that are running in the background. And because a lot of us have been repeating these for years, sometimes decades, without realizing, we might be entering similarly unhealthy relationships, or we keep hitting professional ceilings in our career, or we're struggling with financial habits year after year. And it's not a lack of effort. Once the pattern's recognized, there is the possibility for change. And what I call this is pattern utilization. So once you recognize it, you can use it strategically. And instead of reacting to situations, you can leverage those patterns to produce better outcomes. And this is what we're going to be looking at today. In life, it means asking questions like, what behaviors consistently lead to my best outcomes? And what habits repeatedly hold me back? And how can I intentionally use patterns that serve me? And when you begin utilizing patterns instead of reacting to them, you shift from passive living to proactive design. And that's where we want to get to, which takes me to my next step of pattern creation. And what we're going to be doing tomorrow, which is designing your life. And what pattern creation is at the highest level, you move beyond recognizing and using patterns to beginning to create them. This is where it becomes deliberate rather than accidental. And highly successful individuals design their routines, systems, environments that produce the results they want. Instead of hoping for success, they're building the patterns that make success inevitable. And it's daily habits like structured morning routines, consistent learning patterns, intentional health and fitness systems, scheduled reflection and planning. And they're not random behaviors, they're consciously created patterns designed to produce consistent results. So your life today is largely the result of the patterns that you've followed, some consciously and many unconsciously. But the encouraging news is that patterns are not permanent. They can be changed, redesigned, and replaced. And understanding our patterns, which we're going to do today, is the first step of that. So let's move into some of the patterns that we might have been repeating and see if we can identify any. So moving on to what is holding you back from your purpose. And this is a common one that people sense that a purpose is waiting or a direction is calling, but something keeps getting in the way. And how do you move past it? So there's a lot of common blockers to purpose. And we spoke a bit about fear, fear of failure, or waiting for some sort of permission. Perfectionism is a great blocker, imposter syndrome, overwhelm, not knowing where to start, comparison, and old identities that no longer fit, and external expectations. And fear of failure and fear of success really just keeps you from trying. Both are protected. But the antidote to that is to take small risks and build evidence that you can handle it. Waiting for permission, no one is coming to give you permission, not your parents, not your boss, not the world. Um, the permission you need is your own. So, what are you waiting for? Overwhelm and paralysis. So when the vision is big, that first step can feel really impossible. But you don't need to see the whole path. You just need to take one step, and clarity comes through action, not just thought. And moving past the blocks. So just name the block. Awareness is the power. Challenge the belief behind it, which we're going to get into today, and take one small action anyway. And building momentum through repetition is what this is all about. And get support, a mentor, a coach. You don't have to do it all alone. And purpose isn't really found, it's uncovered by removing what's in the way. Next thing, we're going to look at recalibration. So we live in a world that is obsessed with reinvention, or quit your job, burn your life down, start over, become someone else. But most people don't actually need reinvention, they need recalibration. And we spoke about the arrival of drift, and that drift happens slowly, and it's not through dramatic decisions, but thousands of small unconscious ones. And you start listening to yourself, stop listening to yourself, and override your needs. And you stay busy instead of intentional. And you keep performing instead of pausing. And you become productive but disconnected. And eventually you just wake up one day feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, emotionally flat, or quietly unfulfilled, wondering, how did I get here? Um, and that's what recalibration or reset is really about. It's not about becoming someone else, it's about returning to yourself. Um, Reinvention, on the other hand, is often exhaustion in disguise. It's the dangerous thing about drift is that your life can still look successful on the outside while feeling deeply misaligned on the inside. But underneath it all, something feels off. And most people think this feeling means they need to literally burn their life down or reinvent it, like a new career, a new relationship, new city, a new version of themselves. But often reinvention is just exhaustion, disguised as transformation. And if you change everything externally without addressing your internal patterns, usually you just recreate the same patterns in a different environment. So you can move somewhere and still feel disconnected, start a different job, still burn out, build a successful business and still feel empty. So you really are taking yourself with you. Because the issue was never your entire life. It was your calibration, the pace, the pressure, and your nervous system overload, that constant reacting instead of intentional living, which is what we're trying to get to. And the habits that slowly pulled you away from yourself. Reset or recalibration asks a different question. It's, what if I don't need to become someone else? What if I need to reconnect with who I already am underneath the noise? Um, and so a reset is not passive, it's intentional. It's creating space to ask some honest conversation questions. What's draining you? What matters to you now? What patterns keep repeating? What am I tolerating? What would alignment actually look like in this season of my life? And it's not about 5 years ago or the version of success other people expect from you. It's actually now. And one of the hardest parts of recalibration is accepting that what once worked no longer does. And the version that you've built for survival may not be the version you need for the next chapter, but that's not failure, it's growth. Nature recalibrates constantly, seasons change, tides drift, rhythms evolve, and humans are supposed to evolve too. And the problem is that we try to hold on to old identities for long after we've outgrown them. So where we need to get to is small, consistent recalibrations. And that real change rarely happens through dramatic overnight reinvention. It happens through small, consistent recalibrations, better boundaries, more honesty and rest, less numbing, more reflection, daily walks, turning your phone off, learning how to sit with yourself again. Those tiny shifts repeated consistently begin changing your emotional baseline, your clarity, and eventually your life. So your life is not shaped by one massive decision, it's shaped by your daily patterns, and your day creates your life. So, what if you're feeling overwhelmed and confused? And I wish I could tell you at some point this goes away, but success doesn't remove those feelings. They're signs that you're human. And the feelings aren't proof you're failing. Stop fighting the feeling. The mistake most of us make is assuming that these feelings shouldn't be there. We resist them, we fight them, we judge them, try to fix them. We tell ourselves that once we've figured everything out, we'll finally feel calm. Once the business grows, once we launch the thing, once we make the money, once we feel ready. But what if that's not how this works? Every worthwhile thing I've ever done has come with uncertainty. Every business, every career move, every recalibration, fear always showed up, doubt always showed up, confusion always showed up, not because I was doing something wrong, but because I was growing. So the moment you start thinking, why am I feeling like this? This shouldn't be happening. I thought this, I was past this, I've done so much work on myself. You've stepped into quicksand because now you're not only feeling the emotion, you're fighting it. Um, and that's where people get stuck, not in the feeling itself, it's the resistance to the feeling. So nothing has gone wrong. Every shadow contains a gift. Feelings are energy, they're designed to move. We're not supposed to feel amazing all the time. We're not supposed to live permanently in joy, clarity, and flow. The challenge frequencies exist for a reason, and they're information for us. So, um, the problem is we become obsessed with escaping instead of listening to it. So, we'll be digging into that as well. And this takes me to the next point, just really checking in with your emotions. They do not need to be fixed and they need to be felt. And most of us are trying to rush through the day without pausing to notice how we feel. But emotional awareness is the foundation of well-being. And um, when you don't notice your emotions, they accumulate and drive behavior unconsciously. They manifest as physical symptoms, they create disconnection. So, awareness is the first step to regulation. And there is a simple daily practice. You can just pause 2 or 3 times a day and ask, what am I feeling right now? Where do I feel it in my body? What triggered me? And what do I need? And it just takes 2 minutes and it changes everything. You can just set a reminder on your phone or a sticky note or a habit stack and start with your body is often easier than identifying your emotions. You could use an emotion wheel if you're not kind of aware to name the emotion and just don't judge what you find. Just notice it and respond with compassion. What do I need right now? Common emotions to notice are anxiety, sadness, anger, joy, fear, calm, and all emotions are valid. They're all information. And once you know how you can feel, you can honor it. Don't dismiss it. Meet the need if you can. Express it safely. Journal, talk, move, and let it pass. And emotions don't need to be fixed, they need to be felt. So, yeah. You see the physiology of balance and why your nervous system really depends on rhythms of stress and recovery. And balance isn't just a feeling, it's a foundational human need. Um, our nervous systems thrive on rhythm, stress, then recovery, focus, then rest, connection, then solitude. This alternation between activation and relaxation is known as homeostasis, and it's essential for all living systems to function optimally. Without balance, we break mentally. So this is where burnout, anxiety, and fog come in, physically, fatigue and illness, and emotionally, irritability and disconnection. Chronic stress without adequate recovery leads to allostic load, which is the psychological wear and tear that occurs when we remain in high alert states for too long. Over time, this imbalance contributes to numerous health problems, from cardiovascular disease to immune dysfunction. So the science is clear. Regulation is resilience. Balance restores your system, fuels your clarity, and reawakens your purpose. Establishing rhythms of engagement and recovery daily, weekly, and seasonally helps maintain optimal functioning across all dimensions of life. This doesn't mean equal time for everything, but rather appropriate attention to each area based on current needs and priorities. What if doing less is the answer? And this is all about your health. So, if the greatest wealth is health, yet for something so simple, we seem to have made it incredibly complicated. Um, Every day we're told about another thing we should be doing: cold plunges, red light therapy, continuous glucose monitoring, sleep trackers, morning routines, evening routines, breath work, ice baths, optimized hydration, gut protocols, longevity supplements. And our bodies have really become projects. But to be clear, I'm not talking about the practices you generally need. If your doctor has prescribed something, and if a particular routine helps you manage a health condition, or a certain tool genuinely supports your well-being, that's different. I'm talking about all the additions that were sold to us in the path to feeling better and quietly became another thing to manage. Um, so things like your morning routine that was supposed to make you feel free now takes 90 minutes. The wellness stack that was supposed to simplify your life now requires a spreadsheet. The tracker that was supposed to help you understand yourself now tells you whether you've had a good day before you even asked yourself the question. And underneath all, quietly, almost imperceptibly, a small voice asks, is this what well feels like? Because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just feels like another job. So I think a lot of us have fallen into this something seductive trap of optimization. And it really creates a lot of anxiety. So the target just keeps moving. You hit 10,000 steps and discover you should be doing 12. You improve your sleep and then learn about sleep stages. You clean up your diet and then you worry about micronutrients. Health is really a relationship, and this is how we should be looking at it. The journey has become a destination, and the destination keeps moving further away. But we shouldn't keep chasing the next health trends because we're not weak or gullible, we're overwhelmed. So this brings me to the power of subtraction, an idea that's existed for thousands of years. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not add something, it's remove something. And for me, I found myself that the basics never lost their power. Move your body, eat real food most of the time, sleep like sleep matters, spend time with people you love, get outside, laugh, rest without feeling guilty, and take breaks before your body forces you to. None of these things are particularly exciting. They won't go viral on social media. Nobody's building a £1 billion company around taking a walk with a friend, but they work. They've always worked and they'll still be working long after the latest protocol, supplement, or trend has been replaced by the next one. Which takes me to exercise is not about aesthetics. It's about aligning with your design. And modern life has not a lot of movement. The human body really expects resistance, load, stretch, rotation, acceleration, and deceleration. And when it doesn't get that, it adapts downwards. It's the use it or lose it. It's not a cliche here, it's physiology. We can scroll for hours and hours, but yet we can't seem to find an hour to exercise. But your body is designed to move. It's built for motion, not for chairs. For most of human history, movement wasn't optional, it was survival. And obviously, modern life is set up to, be attached to our devices, but you don't need the extreme. You just need a regular walk daily, lift something heavy, stretch your hips, strengthen your back, and get your heart rate up. So, yeah, try to replace an episode with doing or scrolling with doing something practical. Practical fixes you can reduce the bar by just doing 20 to 30 minutes a day. Momentum matters more than duration. Attach it to an existing habit. So walk while taking calls. Train immediately after work, exercise before opening any apps. That habit stacking reduces decision fatigue. Make it easier than streaming. Keep workouts close visible, build a small home routine, choose simple movements, remove complexity, reduce friction, and track your screen time honestly. Most people underestimate, and awareness alone changes behavior. And there's unlimited classes online. You don't need gym access. There is strength training, Pilates, yoga, hip mobility, dance, low impact workouts, beginners programs, all available instantly. Movement is a privilege. There will come a time for everyone, when movement becomes harder, age will limit it, injury may restrict it, health may challenge it, and the ability to move freely is not guaranteed. It's a gift. So use it while you have it. And nutrition. So again, going back to the sort of complexities that we have really put in place, the human brain uses about 20% of the body's total energy. And even although it only represents a small proportion of the body weight, and so that means what we eat directly influences our ability to think clearly, regulate our emotions, and maintain stable energy. And blood sugar is particularly important. Diets and high in refined sugars and ultra processed foods can lead to spikes and crashes in glucose level. And those fluctuations often show up as fatigue, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and cravings. So, in contrast, meals around whole foods, including protein, healthy fats, fiber, and complex carbohydrates, help regulate blood sugar and provide a more stable supply of energy to the brain. And nutrition also influences the gut microbiome, which is increasingly recognized as playing a role in mood regulation and mental health. The gut and brain communicate through the gut-brain axis, meaning that what we eat can affect not only physical health, but our emotional well-being. And eating well is not about perfection or rigid diets. It's about giving the body nutrients it needs to function. So nutrition is number one, and then breathing and regulating your nervous system is number two. So breathing is something we do automatically, yet it's one of the few bodily functions we can consciously control. This makes it a powerful tool for regulating the nervous system. When we're stressed, breathing tends to be shallow and rapid, activating the body's fight or flight response. And over time, this can keep the body in a constant state of tension. Slow, controlled breathing has the opposite effect. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes called the rest and restore state. This lowers heart rate, reduces stress hormones, and signals to the brain that it's safe to relax. Even a few minutes of slow breathing can begin to calm the body and improve focus. So, simple techniques such as longer exhalations, diaphragmatic breathing, or structured breath practices can shift our physiological state really quickly. And over time, these small choices compound. Really kind of looking at simplicity. So, obviously, we're living in a world which there's so much information, more opinions, notifications, and pressure. But joy was never supposed to be complicated, and real joy comes from clarity. Clarity about who you are, what matters to you, what you value, and what kind of life you actually want to live. And when you become clear, something powerful happens. You relax. The static disappears. You stop trying to force yourself into places, roles, and expectations that were never designed for you in the first place. You stop performing and masking and start becoming. So, most people are carrying way too much noise in their minds to hear themselves think. But the truth is quiet. This is why sometimes the most important thing you can do is step away from the noise and go and sit somewhere quiet. Sit with yourself, breathe, walk, journal, look at the sky, listen to your own thoughts without interruption, because underneath the chaos, you already know. Simplicity is about removing what is unnecessary. So you can focus on what matters, your energy, your purpose, your relationships, your work, your well-being, your creativity, your contribution. And it's about creating enough space in your life to hear yourself. And confidence is not built through external validation. Confidence comes from self-awareness, and it comes from understanding your own design, your patterns, your energy, your strengths, your needs, your natural rhythm. Your secret sauce is studying yourself, not becoming somebody else. This is the doing, the being is doing the doing. Who you are shapes how you move through the world. When you understand yourself deeply, decisions become easier, direction becomes clearer, life flows differently, and you stop fighting yourself. What if you don't know what to do? What's next? And for me, this is about making the question really small. So if you are in a situation where you don't know what to do with your life, you need to practice making the question smaller until it gets onto a post-it note. So, for example, what am I doing with my life? That's just, too big. There's nothing to decide there. What am I doing with this summer? Still too big. A little bit more specific. It's got a date on it, but you can't do it because that's like, it's the whole summer. That's 100 small decisions. What about do I want to spend this summer building something, resting, or exploring? Now that's closer. Now there's a question with answerable options, but still a bit big. And then we get to this week. Do I want to start the book I've been thinking about, plan the trip, sign up for a workshop, or block off real rest time before I decide anything? There it is. So that's a post-it. You can answer it. You can move it on. And if you notice what happens, what am I doing with my life? And should I block off rest time this week? Are technically about the same thing, your life, but one of them is answerable and the other gets done by Friday. Yes, the mind will resist the practice, but the small question isn't important enough. I need to figure the big thing out. This is the loop talking, and the loop survives on size, and the specific questions starve it. So the other question is, what if I never find my passion? And passion is its own kind of fog. And, it promises that somewhere out there, there's a singular calling and their job is to find that. And if you don't, you've failed, you've wasted time. And if you do, congratulations, you've arrived, you've made it. Either way, your worth is on the line, and that's a lot to put on one word. And I want to offer a different question, a different perspective. Not what's my passion, but what adds value to my life. And what makes time stop for you? What genuinely makes you feel better, fills you up with light, excitement, appreciation? Is it creativity, movement, being around people who think out loud, working with your hands, long conversations, solitude, cooking for someone, walking somewhere new? You probably already know, you just haven't been counting it as enough because we've been taught that whatever lights us up has to scale into a career, a calling, an identity, or it doesn't count. So we dismiss the things that quietly make us us and keep searching for some bigger thing that's supposed to make sense of everything. But the bigger thing isn't out there waiting, it's already in motion every time you do what fills you up. The life worth living isn't built on one passion, it's built on 100 small returns to what makes you feel alive. So, how about instead of finding your passion, you follow what feels like more of you more often? Um, I get this a lot as well. How do you know if it's a sign? So, people often say they're waiting for a sign to leave their job, start the business, end a relationship, move to a new city, finally pursue the thing that you can't stop thinking about. But the problem is that most people are waiting for certainty, and signs rarely arrive that way. They arrive quietly through repetition. So it's rarely a big booming voice coming from the universe telling you what to do. It's usually quietly and more subtle and more persistent. It's often a feeling that keeps returning and an idea that you can't seem to let go of, a conversation that lands differently, a book that says exactly what you needed to hear, a thought that keeps showing up despite your efforts to ignoring it. And the interesting thing about signs is that they often arrive through repetition. The same message appears in different places. Different people give similar advice. Opportunities emerge around the same thing. You notice the same idea showing up again and again. And at first, it feels like coincidence. Then it begins to feel like a pattern, and patterns matter. Um, Often intuition, and your body knows before your mind does. This is where intuition enters the conversation. It's often misunderstood as something mythical. In reality, intuition is frequently your brain and nervous system processing information before your conscious mind has caught up. And your body notices patterns long before your thinking mind can explain them. So how do you distinguish intuition from fear? Fear tends to be loud, urgent, and chaotic. It catastrophizes, creates panic, and demands immediate action. And intention is usually quieter, it arrives on as a calm knowing, a sense of clarity, and a persistent feeling that something deserves your attention. It may still feel uncomfortable because growth is often uncomfortable, but usually doesn't feel frantic. The myth of being ready. So, and why action creates motivation, not the other way around. And um, this is an emotional problem, not a productivity one. At first glance, it sounds like a productivity problem, but it rarely is. It's usually an emotional one. The things that feel like too much are rarely too much because they're difficult. They feel heavy because of the meaning attached to them. Expectation, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discovering we might not be as capable as we hope. And sometimes the opposite fear appears too, fear of what it could actually mean if it works. Instead of starting, we wait until we feel ready, but the longer we wait, the heavier things become. So readiness rarely arrives first. Stop trying to feel ready. Readiness is a myth. It arrives because of the action. You don't suddenly feel capable and then begin. You begin and you slowly start to feel capable. Sorry about that. So, what might become possible if those patterns changed, and we were able to look after the true needs that we have, without judgment on ourselves? So, one small interruption for you this week is to name one or more of the patterns that you keep repeating. Name the need it's quietly feeding. So, is it trying to keep you safe, or is it trying to protect you from your fear of failure? And then take one small step smaller than your resistance, not to fix it, just to interrupt it. You don't break a pattern by understanding it, you break it by moving. And you don't need to be ready. Tomorrow, we're going to start the design phase. You don't need to know what's next. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to have found your purpose. You need to just move from exactly where you are. And if you haven't already done so, take the balance reset at balance.ai/quiz. And I'll see you in the Zoom room tomorrow.